and a salute. I'm your host, Chris Budihas, and I'm fortunate to be joined virtually with Iven Sugai from Meta. Iven, how are you?
I'm well, Chris. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, I appreciate your service to the nation and really interested to talk about your post-military career, your transition and what you're doing now. So you're with Meta. I think I heard of them once or twice. So where are you from? What you do in the military? And how did you get to Meta and what are you doing with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say it's a long story, but I know we don't have much time here. So, well, first of all, Chris, I'd like to say thank you for your service and everything that you and the team do for our veteran community. So I wanted to start off with that.
Thank you.
Well, I hail from a place called Ewa, Hawaii. It is a old sugarcane plantation in the middle of the Pacific, right? So little small towns. My parents moved here for a greater opportunity. I wanted an opportunity to give back, which is why I spent a lengthy time in the service. My dad was career Department of the Navy, and he gave me that early exposure to the military. So when it was time to leave the house, I said, you know what, I'm going to join the Army. So at the bright age of 17, I enlisted to become a forward observer in the field artillery. And for those out there that don't know what that is, basically you're the eyes for the cannons and rockets and the aircraft that are out there. So great job. Absolutely loved it. I loved it so much that when I finished school, and I used the military to pay for that, I decided I wanted to become an officer, and I wanted to continue in that field. So I became an artillery officer, did a lot of really cool things. And I can tell you, coming from that little town in Hawaii, I never thought I'd be able to do all the cool things that I did over the course of 28 years. I had an opportunity to command troops in combat in Iraq, was able to serve in Iraq twice, Afghanistan once, and of course a slew of others in both Asia and in Europe. I was privileged and had the honor of commanding the oldest continuously serving field artillery battalion, or oldest military unit, Hamilton's Own, which was founded in 1776 by Hamilton himself, Alexander Hamilton himself. So that was really cool. And a couple other things that I did that I never thought, again, being from such a small town, would, and I think the military does this for us and its exposure is. I was able to serve Congress and as part of the office of the Chief Legislative Liaison. Had an opportunity to serve in the White House under then Trump's administration. So I worked on defense policy and did a lot of that correspondence between both the DoD and, of course, with Congress through the Office of Management and Budget. So a lot of cool things there. And, is opportunity that I had in the White House where I met up with some folks that were a part of this new organization. They like to call themselves a startup within government, right? And they were called the United States Digital Services.
Okay.
I met a lot of folks from Meta, Google, and all across tech. And I guess you can say that's what started this network that I leverage. And you can see how that would be a theme for how this would help one transition out of the military and how it helped me get to Meta. After I did my battalion command, I spent some time at the Missile Defense Agency as I was transitioning out. I reached back out to that network that I met while at the White House at Google, and had a lot of conversations there. When it came about that 180 days out, I participated in Hiring Our Heroes. I've heard numerous folks who have been on your show talk about this program. And I actually got into that through a very non-standard means. Normally, you apply to the program, you go through a couple of interviews, and then you end up with a company. Of course, it's a two-way match, something they want, something you want. And you end up there for a good part of the remaining of your career until you're ready to go into full employment. For me, I was using that network in Google and I wanted to apply there. I knew that was something I wanted to do. Tech was something that was sort of a side passion of mine while I served. And the people at Google eventually got me to some folks that said, we'd love to have you as an intern. And I mentioned, well, there's a skill bridge program and maybe I can do that there. And what they directed me to was, well, we only do things through the Hiring Our Heroes program. So that was their partner. And from there, I joined the program, I applied, and I said, hey, I talked to Google, and they're willing to host me as one of their interns, or as their fellow, as it's called. And I got into Google that way, and a very non-standard approach to hiring a hero. So again, the theme there is, being able to own your transition and kind of picking what I want. So I didn't go through the process of picking which company. I knew where I wanted to go, and I kind of went after that. But again, you mentioned Meta, right? So Google is not Meta, as we all know. But what I got out of that was just the pure networking with folks in the tech industry. I got to know, what kind of value my military experience could bring to, a big tech company like Google. And that kind of added to my confidence, but more importantly, the circle of folks in the industry. And I eventually reached out to someone through a Google Mate. And he was a former Top Gun pilot. And just so happens he was good friends with another friend of mine who was a Top Gun pilot. So we made this connection there. And he said, there are a couple of things that we got that would absolutely make use of the talents you bring in the military. And the good thing about that is he was an advocate. And I think that's an important thing for people to have, is not just those cheerleaders that say rah, rah, veteran, but someone that's actually to roll up their sleeves and help you get into the role. So he helped with the coaching and mentoring, did a referral for me, got through the interviews. And, I originally, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Program management was something that came naturally. I thought that was something I did well. I had my PMP, my project management professional, so I thought it was a fitting thing. And lo and behold, what Meta did was they took this as a signal for other roles and not just the role that I applied for. And after numerous rounds of interviews, at the end it was like, well, I know you applied for this, but there's another role. You mentioned a lot of this chief of staff experience that you had, and this role that we're interested in you in applying for is this global portfolio manager, which is very much like a chief of staff role. And based on what the discussions that we've had with you and the signals that we've seen, I think this would be fitting for you. And ultimately, I said, well, I definitely wanna do exactly what I did. When I enlisted artillery, and I wanted to stay in something I knew, so I went and became an artillery officer. I knew that I was good at doing the chief of staff like role, so I said, absolutely, I'd love to do that. And wow, it's been a whirlwind time for us in Meta. I came in at a bad time when, as you all may have seen in the news, we were doing a lot of downsizing, so I was a little worried, a lot of stress with this transition, and ultimately it worked through, and I've been at the company for about a year and a half, and I think doing pretty well. And my message to the folks out there is there's so many tools that we don't realize immediately as we're transitioning, that add to that value that we bring to companies that are very different from what we're used to, right? I know a lot of folks go into contracting and work for the DoD or military related or defense related companies. But I want people to know that there are a lot of opportunities outside of that, and we do have those tools, and it's broad enough to be applied to all kinds of other industries.
Well, Ivan, there's so many nuggets in there. I'm going to pull out a few. Own your transition, network, find advocates, believe in yourself. I'm going to finish up this book probably this weekend called Burn the Boats. But your ability to believe in yourself and all the training and skills that you got, and kind of apply that. Now, granted, if you're going to do that, you got to be willing to put the calories in and kind of move forward. And you're a great example of somebody that moved using those skills they've developed over time and applying them to an organization. No doubt they value you based on the responsibilities they saw in you, and obviously your potential there. So, hey, thanks for what you did for the country. Thanks for what you're doing for our community, our veteran community, by spreading the word and also giving back through your own personal testimony here as your transition. Because unfortunately, there's a figure that 73% of veterans will change their first company when they transition out of the military through retirement or through ETS. They will move to another company within their first 3 years, and 73% is so high. And you're showing an example of, if you own your transition, you could probably get better placement, one with the company you should be at, and then the position you should be at. So after being a guy who spent 4 years on Hawaii, I like to say aloha and thank you for your service. Aloha. Hey folks, if you like what you heard, please continue to tune in. Friend both Ivan and myself on LinkedIn, and let's continue the conversation about all the great things veterans are doing across our nation and worldwide. See you in the next segment.
Operation Barnabas is a veterans ministry, started in 2017 with the purpose of helping our veterans that kind of got left behind.
These people went over and went to war for us, and a lot of their friends didn't come back, and that's a lot of the stuff that we as veterans deal with is there's a lot of people that didn't make it back, and then it's like, why are we here? So and then they isolate.
And you know, they've struggled with addictions, PTSD, suicidal thoughts, those kind of things, helping them get whole again through one-to-one mentorship.
So being able to communicate with them and help them can drastically change their life, can drastically change a family's life. The little that we can do is put our hand out and say, hey, do you want a hand up? Like, we're not giving a hand out. Do you want a hand up? And just be able to be there with them and do life with them and just be able to help them, because man, they put their life on the line for you and me.